The English Football League is officially over, but that means just one thing. It is playoff time, arguably the most exciting time of the season. And today we are going to go through all the three tiers, the Championship, League One, and League Two, giving our predictions of all the playoffs, who we think is going to go through and get promoted. As always, stay tuned. Make sure you hit subscribe. We want to see you up in the comments. Follow along with the episode as we go along. Let's start at the top of the pyramid in the Championship. What an end to the season. Late drama to the last minute in the playoff places. But it was Millwall, it was Southampton, it was Middlesbrough, and it was Hull who made the cut to the playoffs. So let's start off with our predictions and our thoughts on the Championship playoffs. Reese, we'll come to you first.
Yeah, let's focus then on the first game that's going to go ahead, which is 6 feet third, which is Hull versus Millwall, and then of course there'll be the reverse leg next Monday. I think this is a really tough game that I think is going to be decided in the first leg. As crazy as that sounds, because I think it's hard to say. I mean, Hull have done really well to get where they are. They survived on goal difference last season, to stay in the division, had a transfer embargo. So to be where they are is very impressive to sneak in there on the last day. Um, if I'm not mistaken, Hull also topped the both teams to score table, meaning that they know how to score a goal, but they don't seem to know how to keep it out the net. Um, and Millwall are a team that who actually won more games than Ipswich. Let's remember that, are a very good side away. Um, and I think this game will be decided in that leg, because I think Millwall are going to be too strong at home, and I think they'll get the job done. Um, it's a tough one to call this because when both teams played each other in the league, it finished 3-1 in both games to the away side. So this is a real hard one to call. This is why the Championship's the best league in the world, because this is genuinely so hard to call, because Hull can beat anybody on their day. But as we've seen, Millwall know how to beat the big boys when it matters. Um, their Achilles heel is losing games when they shouldn't, which is where they might fall foul here. But I would argue that they have been very impressive in a very good season, and from my Championship preview at the start, they were one of my teams to do very well in the top six. I think Millwall will go through here, and I think they'll win the first leg. Maybe another 3-1 scoreline could be precise, but I look at guys like Femi Aziz, Ivanovic up front causing all sorts of problems. I look at how good they are defensively with Crammer, Jake Cooper, Caleb Taylor, all around 6'2" and above. There's some big guys up there. They've got Anthony Patterson in goal, who is a proven goalkeeper at this level. I'm going to go with Millwall here. And I also think Hull might be cursed with a finishing sixth thing, because the last team to finish sixth in the Championship playoffs and actually win it was Blackpool, and that was in 2010. So Millwall could have the statistic advantage of being the team, because third is the most likely chance. So I'm going to go with Millwall over two legs, but it'll be decided in the first leg, in my opinion.
All right, Jamie, what about you?
Yeah, with this Millwall Hull one, I think. Look, Millwall probably should be promoted automatically. They messed up against Leicester. Like the team, Leicester were relegated at this point. They had to go there and win. Went 1-0 down. Probably a little bit against the run of play. But then after that, it was pure Millwall on top. And they had the big chance at the end to win it. So really, and it was a header that came off, I can't remember, it was one of the strikers' shoulder. If he just hit it with his head, it probably went in, and that means Millwall would be automatically promoted. But sometimes things just go against you. If it's like not meant to be in why they're not automatic. However, I do agree with Reese. I think they're going to be too strong for Hull. I think, without being harsh on Hull, I think they're slightly fortunate to be here in this in the final sort of playoff places. So I think Millwall are going to be too strong for them over the two legs, especially. But it's if it's meant to be, like you're sort of mentioning these stats. When these stats get mentioned, they are there to be broken. So it could be one where fate's against Millwall in going up, and Hull sort of do a bit of a surprise. But if I'm backing my money, it's Millwall to go through to Wembley.
Yeah, we're all in agreement. I just think Millwall have a little bit more that grit, maybe that determination just to get through and get over the line. As you said, Hull was sweating to the last minute, even to get in the playoffs. Um, so yeah, sweating to the last minute to get in the playoffs. And yeah, I just look. This is not going to be an attractive game of football. Let's make that absolutely crystal clear. It's going to be a hard watch. Um, but I do think Millwall are just going to be the better side and get through. Could be a 1-0. Could be a. I can't see a load of goals in this game, I'll be honest. So, yeah, 3-3 Millwall to go through. Let's move on to the other tie. Saints versus Middlesbrough. For me, it's a very clear choice on this one. Pretty much for Middlesbrough since that Coventry loss, it has all gone downhill. It is Middlesbrough are top. Let's bear that in mind. And we do normally see when these teams are in that position, they bottle it, they falter, they just lose it. They lose all the momentum and they can't recover. And I think that's exactly what we're going to see in this other leg. Saints to the team with form, momentum. The run they've been on is absolutely mental, by the way. And I cannot see another result than Saints getting through. Even with the FA Cup run. Again, just more confidence to suggest that this team should be in the Premier League. So I'm probably giving my answer away to who I think is going to win the whole playoffs and go up. But yeah, we got to shout out Leo Cienza, by the way. I've seen about 3 games of him this season. He is an absolute baller, and he's ready for the Prem.
Yeah, if I encourage anybody that doesn't watch the Championship to tune into this game, this is a real belter of a game, Middlesbrough, Southampton, because both of these teams are capable of beating each other, and both of these teams are capable of going for it. I agree, Middlesbrough really slipped up, and I don't think it was the Coventry game where it went really wrong for them. It was drawing at home to Leicester and Oxford, which really signalled that not quite there. I think this is a great, great game of football. Um, as we know, Middlesbrough have only won 2 of the last 9, but they are a good side. They know how to go at you. They know how to get results. You know, Whitaker, when he's on form, is a good player. To me, Hayden Hackney is a brilliant player at this level, especially. He's going to be key. Um, Borough still have the 4th most goals. Southampton have the 2nd. So this really goes to show how this game could go either way. I'm probably cursing it. It's probably going to be 0-0 now. I don't think this game is decided in the first leg. I think this could go all the way across both. But Middlesbrough will probably need to get a result in the first leg, to be honest. Southampton have been flying. We can't deny that. They have been unbelievable since their last defeat in the league, which was at Hull. And I will say this, Southampton haven't beaten any of the teams in the playoffs this season. Not beaten any of them. So mentally, that could affect them, but I would argue it probably doesn't really matter now because their last defeat to Hull and then was a defeat to Middlesbrough and then a draw to Millwall. So they played all 3 in a go. Since then, they've been untouchable. And I agree. I think Cienza is a phenomenal player. He will be in the Premier League, I think, one way or the other next season. And I think he will be key to how this game goes. How do they win the first leg? I don't know. Like I said, this could go all the way. I think Middlesbrough will do very well, but I will say Southampton will go. I think Southampton win on penalties. But if Ross Stewart plays and he's fit, he is the best striker in the Championship by quite a margin. He needs to play for Southampton to score goals. I don't mean that tactically or negatively, but he's key as well. Ross Stewart is a fantastic striker. So if he's fit, Middlesbrough will have a very busy evening on their hands.
We're not going to go 3 for 3. I'm going to sort of call it out there. Middlesbrough were my dark horse at the start of the year when we did our preview, so I'm sticking by them. And I remember last year when we did this video, Sunderland were 5 losses in a row. We were talking about how bad their form was going into the playoffs. Did it matter? No. So we're talking sort of 2 wins in 9. It doesn't matter. It's different types of games. And to be honest, we sort of said Millwall could have been. I said Millwall could have been automatically promoted. So could easily have both these teams. It's very, very tight up there, and Ipswich have just got over the line, really. So it sort of shows how tight it is up there, and there are very good teams who won't make it.
Ipswich will be breathing a sigh of relief that they've
Yeah,
avoided this. And I think that's how competitive this league is. The thought of having to go into the playoffs with four teams equally as good as each other is like your worst nightmare as a fan because you don't know how it's going to go. It's exciting for everyone else, but Ipswich will be grateful that they managed to get over the line because I wouldn't want to be in that playoff because there's so many hard games there. Anyone can beat anyone.
yeah, I totally agree. And also, like Middlesbrough did draw away to Ipswich fairly recently. That it shows that they can, compete with all these teams. So I do feel like this is going to be a very tough game. I know Reece is saying there's going to be sort of goals in this. I think it will be entertaining, but I think the first leg will be nervy, and that sort of maybe tune in for the second leg for a better showing is my opinion on it. But I am going Middlesbrough to go through. I'm going to stick with my pre-season prediction, and hopefully I'm not the only one. Reese isn't the only one who made a very bold prediction at the start of the season in this league and was correct. So come on, Middlesbrough.
All right, so let's make our decisions. I think I kind of gave mine away on who I think is going to actually going back to the Prem. I think Southampton. I think they've just shown something's clicked. They're a level above. It's not going to be easy, by the way. These are four decent sides who, as you just said, will beat anyone. Beat each other on any given day. But yeah, for me, Southampton. They've also been to Wembley. They almost beat Man City. I think that does add a bit of weight to confidence and belief and all of that stuff. So yeah, Southampton for me.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. As much as I love Millwall Football Club, as much as I love watching them, much as I love interacting with their fans, I think this might be a little bit too soon for them. Millwall know how to get the job done, don't get me wrong, and their Wembley record is actually quite good. I think Southampton just have that edge up front, which is the difference. I think that's it, like a Cienza, a Ross Stewart to get a goal. Aziz as well is also there for Southampton. So I think they might just have that creativity edge, but momentum is firmly on Southampton's side just from their run. Um, and if it stops, it's got to stop now, I suppose. So stopping it could be their Achilles heel, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm gonna go Southampton, but only just.
It would be funny though if Millwall went up and West Ham went down after all those years. Do you actually think? I wonder, Millwall fans, if you're watching, would you want West Ham to go down
I,
because it's
I
funny,
I
saw,
or
will
do you
answer
want to
that
play them?
question. No, they
I
do not.
saw, I saw a clip, and all of them went, "I'd rather Spurs go down than
Yeah,
West
So they
Ham."
can play them? Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Most
Interesting.
as someone who is friends with Millwall fans, they're more than happy to stay in the championship. I know attitudes probably have changed now, but they would rather stay in the championship, have Palace down there, West Ham down there, um, you know, Leeds down there, Luton, you name it, who they've had beef with, they'd happily stay there. But you can't knock it if they do get promoted. It's fully deserved.
we are sort of in agreement of it. I don't think it's going to be Millwall going up. I think they've had a very, very good season and probably better than what was expected at the start of the season. So I do think I'm going to stick, like I said, with my prediction from the start of the season, just to be a bit stubborn in that sort of way. Um, I do think it's sort of 50. It is. I think if whoever it's 50-50 and then 50-50 again. So I'm just choosing heads twice in a row is my thought process. So I'm going to stick with Middlesbrough to come up to the league, and I'll clip it up if I'm right.
I wonder what odds they were. Were they up there? I don't know. Were they up there as one of the teams? I can't remember. I was going to say it feels like they would have been one of those teams in contention, but
Yeah, absolutely would be.
yeah. All right. Maybe don't clip it up then. Just take the credit in the chat. Let's move on to League One. Now, this honestly, this is unbelievable. So, 2 points separated the four teams in the playoff. 2 points. That is absolutely insane. In the end, it was Stockport on 77, Bradford on 77,
Bolton on 75 and Stevenage on 75. Stevenage, of course, getting the last kick winner. Unbelievable scenes. Also, shout out to Luton, who put in some unbelievable form and missed out right at the end. But we love the drama. Um, who who do we think is going up here then? How do we see these matchups playing out?
Again, this is a very evenly poised game, set of games, just due to the fact of what you said there by the points. Um, Bolton are a very good side under Steven Schumacher. You know, they've done very well to be where they are, I would argue, because Cardiff, no one expected Lincoln to be up there, right? So many probably thought Bolton would be around there. Bradford, to me, they got promoted last season. Outstanding achievement from them as well. Stevenage snuck in the last game. They've done very well. And Stockport are also a very talented side with a very talented coach in Challoner. So this is really, really hard to call because I think all the teams are capable of beating each other. If we're going to start with Stockport County, who finished third, I think sometimes you don't know what team you're going to get from them. They can be free flowing and energetic. 1 minute, beating everyone with ease, and then they go and lose at home to Port Vale. They go and lose at home to Mansfield, who don't have anything to play for. It's games like that where it worries me for Stockport at times, and they did lose to Luton in the cup final as well, not too long ago. So, do they have that edge? I would argue they do still because they should beat Stevenage. Stevenage are a good side, but I think their luck might run out here. But Stevenage are a tough team to beat. They're a tough team to break down. They're very physical. They're very dominating, very experienced. It's not going to be easy. But Stockport, for me, should have the edge over these two games.
Well, you say that, but Stevenage beat them home and away this year. It's good. It's good, impressive results. 3-1 away and 2-1 at home, and that was sort of December and Feb time. So it wasn't like it was at the start of the season where they're not. Stevenage, you can say they're fortunate with a last minute goal to get them into the playoffs, but defensively they've been absolutely solid. Second best defence in the league. Obviously, that's to Lincoln, who were comfortably the best team in the whole division. But the problem for Stevenage is scoring goals. The only teams that have a worse record than them are the bottom three. That's the biggest problem for them. So if Stockport do manage to get a goal or two, it's going to be very hard for Stevenage to come back and actually get through with it. So I want Stevenage to go through just because they're sort of the most local to us. But I think it's such an uphill battle, especially with Stockport away in the second leg. I just don't see it, unfortunately. I think Stockport will go through. But for Stevenage, they've had their big moment of the last minute winner to get into the playoffs. But I think this is where that journey ends for them.
Yeah, I really same as you, to be completely honest. I'd love to see Stevenage do it somehow, some way. I mean, Stevenage v Spurs next season. Imagine that. We'd all love that. But no, yeah, to be honest, I completely agree. I just think Stockport were going to turn it on, and I don't think they're going to have enough Stevenage personally. Thing is, you can say defensive record, so maybe if they nick a goal, they sit back, maybe they can grind something out, maybe false pens or something like that. But I just think over two legs, Stockport are going to have better quality. Simple as that. So yeah, I'm in agreement. Stockport for me. And then moving on, I mean, again, I'm really struggling to find anything between these two sides. Obviously, the points suggest that it is one of the closest playoffs we've had in years, but uh, honestly, I don't even know where to start. Bolton or Bradford? It feels like a coin flip to me. I'm going to go Bolton, but to be completely honest, I don't have much. I don't have much to go off. I think they're two similar sides. I don't know.
I
Do you
mean,
boys feel any differently?
there was nothing to separate these two teams in the league.
No.
They drew both games. Bradford are the surprise package. Like I said, the chickens did very well. They, you know, surpassed my expectations, particularly. Um, I like players like Sarcevic. I think he's very good at this level. So they've recruited very smart, very hard to break down, very organised. And again, they can win games when maybe it's against them. But then they can lose games when they probably shouldn't lose games. Um, Bolton, to me, have the edge in this. Hence why I think it's going to be a sort of greater Manchester derby in the final, because I think Stephen Schumacher's got promoted with Plymouth from this division. He didn't just get promoted, he battered the league very, very well. Um, and I think that gives him an edge in getting out of this situation. I know that we talk about how the teams are all capable of beating each other, but it's now when it matters. And I think Bolton will have the quality to come together and get it over the line. It won't be easy, but I think Bolton can even afford a defeat at Valley Parade, if that makes sense, because I think they've got the quality to overcome it. But again, the overall argument is sometimes you just don't know what teams are going to turn up. But I think Bolton just have that edge, and I think Schumacher's good at steering them through that.
This one, I think it is going to be tight. I think we're all roughly going with sort of Bolton to go through, but Bolton just draw games. 18 draws this year, the highest comfortably in the league. With it, they just don't lose that many games. Like it's joint with Cardiff in second, and obviously only Lincoln beat them in like defeats. So Bolton just don't lose, and that could bode well for them in both sort of if they go through, but in both legs. I think this one could go down to a penalty shootout because Bolton just don't refuse to sort of lose the games. And like we said, they drew both times in the league. Bolton did beat them in the FA Trophy or Football League Trophy, quite comfortably 3-0. But that's a cup competition, and I'd rule that out. Really, don't look too much into that. The league recently they played very recently and drew 1-1 away at Bradford. So I think this one goes to penalties. Both games being a draw, and Bolton will just come out on top in that one. But like I said, like we've said with this, it's so close up there. You wouldn't be surprised with any result here, apart from like a hammering for one team. I think all these games will be very close.
Yeah, if anyone watching has an opinion on this game as to why you're picking a team, I'd love to know because I'm really struck. Well, we're all struggling clearly to have a clear favourite in this game. So it should be an interesting one, maybe a bit of a tactical battle. So I guess the ultimate question is who's getting promoted. I'll start again. Look, I think really, if you look at the points, it suggests the same. If you look at the stats, the squads, everything, there is not much to separate any of these four teams. So again, picking the winner in the final feels arguably just as difficult. I'm going to be boring again for the same logic that I had of Stockport getting past Stevenage. I think Stockport will go up. Maybe a boring prediction potentially, but in key moments, I think they're just going to have that little bit more quality personally. But again, I cannot sit here and say I'm confident in that prediction at all. Um, Boys, what do you think?
I'm going to go against you. I think Bolton are sort of just too hard to beat, and especially when you're playing in them finals where it's so sort of tense and everything, being so sort of like defensively solid and not worrying too much about the conceding part of it as much, in getting draws for the games. I think that bodes quite well in these finals. So I'm going Bolton to go through, but once again, it will be a very close game. I don't see either team sort of running away with it. So I think Bolton will just edge out Stockport, sort of like like literally like a 1-0. I don't think it's going to be a thrilling game because both teams have got so much on the line. It's going to be nervy for both.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Jamie here. I think Bolton will just edge it against Stockport in a final. This is the beauty of the playoffs, like this, when all teams are as equally good as one another. Um, I don't think it's going to harm any of the teams if they don't go up. I think, they have a good structure at Stockport. They have a good structure at Bradford, Stevenage as well, and Bolton. But I think Bolton, I think they've got the experience and they're just that little bit harder to beat. And I think that will grind them through.
All right, there you go. Let's move on. Last but not least, it is, of course, League Two. And again, very, very similar stories to League One. Barely any points separate the four teams that are ultimately in the playoffs. We've got Salford, Notts County, Chesterfield, and Grimsby Town. And again, 3 points. Just 3 points separate the teams in the playoffs. And again, I mean, Barnet will be fuming they missed out. Unbelievable form towards the end of the season. Gutted for them. But let's get started. Again, how do we see these ones playing out? Salford v Grimsby, let's start with that. Although there's no points to separate them, barely, do we think this is Salford's time?
I hope not, as a City fan. Purely for that reason, I hope not. Look, once again, they're doing very well under the sort of, Neville and co-ownerships. Like you said, there's 3 points in it between all three of them. Grimsby are showing that I think they've shown they can score a fair few goals. They've actually scored more than the winners of the league. So they are capable of doing it. I know this isn't properly an upset, but I am going to go with Grimsby, and that's not just because I want Salford to do badly. That is just sort of how I see it going. The thing is, it's so hard to predict these. They're all so close. I don't remember it being as close in previous seasons in all three sort of leagues. So, yeah, I'm going with Grimsby. But, I hate saying it because I've said it a few times. It is a coin flip. It really is with some of these games.
Reece?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I think looking at between Salford and Grimsby here, we've got two teams that are very good. And I think Grimsby have done very, very well, even if we include their League Cup upset. I look at how Salford have been growing over the years and under Carl Robinson, how much they have got better. I think they probably do have the edge over Grimsby here. They put in a great performance against Bromley recently, which I was very impressed with. So I would argue that I think Salford are going to do it, but Grimsby have done very well. And I'm not just saying that because I went to Lincoln Uni and I'm trying to spite Grimsby. I do think they've done very, very well. And I think the future is very, very bright with them. But I think for now, I think it might just be a little bridge too far. But Grimsby are no mugs. Let's make that clear. They haven't lost their last, 4 or 5 games? So no mugs. They're coming into this with good momentum.
All right, let's move on. Notts County, Chesterfield. I'll start this off. Again, same principle. I feel like we're repeating ourselves. I know it's annoying, but again, it's going to be a tough game to call. I don't think we're going to see loads of goals. I don't think we're going to see a team go and win by 2-3 goals over the 2 legs. Personally, I see this being a close one. We've got to give a shout out to Liam Mandeville for Chesterfield. He's the De Bruyne of League Two. Let's put it that way. Or the Bruno Fernandes, as some people like to say now. But Jamie's fuming at that. But no, look, yeah, my prediction will be that he's going to get yet another assist. That's my prediction, but I'm going to go Chesterfield to get through.
Just looking at some of the just looking at some of the sort of recent form of Chesterfield, beating Notts County away. It was against 10 men, so it's sort of like you can't really call it that well. But they've beaten Salford away from home, so they do turn up for these games. I'm flipping a coin, and
You're doing a lot of coin flipping tonight.
It really is. It just is, though, isn't it?
No, it
There's
is.
so many of them. I'm bored of myself saying it. So sorry, everyone listening. I'm gonna go with Notts County. I I know I've sort of said positive things about Chesterfield. I just think scoring sort of two against them while having 10 men for a lot of the game against them when they lost bodes quite well for them. Shows they can compete even with 10 men. Purely off that, I'm going to go with Notts County going through, but it's so close to call.
I'm going the opposite here. I think this is a bit of a localish derby, Derbyshire versus Nottinghamshire. Um, Notts County to me looked nailed on for top three not long ago. I felt they were the most consistent. I felt they did very well, but towards the end of the season, they've tailed off big time. I think they lost four in their last 8 games or something like that. So it goes to show that, that they've rocked a little bit. And they're both playing each other, and they both played, they were both in the playoffs last year. So it's a chance to do one better. To me, Paul Cook is an outstanding manager at this level, lower level in particular. He's got promoted with Portsmouth at this level. And I think he has built very well for Chesterfield. And I think that will play to their strengths. And I think Chesterfield will edge it over 2 legs.
All right. Final predictions of the episode. Who do we think is going up in League Two? Reece, will come back to you.
This is rough. Chesterfield are in the best form, but so are Salford. They're in good form. I think it'll be them two in the final. I keep going for the comfortable conservative bet, which would have been Chesterfield, but I'm actually going to go for Salford. Just a 1-0, something like that. Edgy, calm, because I think they're such equal. They're so equal against each other. I think Salford might nick it. But Chesterfield will definitely go up season after, if not.
I think this is actually going to be the most entertaining final of the 3 playoffs. I think this is the one you'll see most goals. It is nervy, don't get me wrong, all 3 of them will be. I think this one will show more goals than the other 2, if I had to sort of, predict one. I know Reece has had Salford and Chesterfield in. I've said Grimsby and Notts County. Looking at it, I think the centre forwards of Jatta and Dennis for Notts County are going to be key for them, and I think they will pick up a few goals. So I'm going to go with Notts County going up. Yeah, I think they're just going to have enough to do it.
All right. Well, we all disagree. I'm sticking with the boys, Chesterfield. Neville in tears. I think Chester again. I think it's going to be too tight to call, but I'm going Chesterfield. So there you have it. That is our predictions officially complete. As always, we've had our say. We now want to hear from you. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.